All right.
All right, wonderful, everyone. Again, thank you so much for being here for Career Week, day number 3, where we're going to talk about networking, how to use a couple of different platforms for virtual networking, and some ways to hopefully make it more natural, more authentic, less awkward, less overwhelming. And so that is my goal for today, as I'm going to be going through LinkedIn and some of my favorite best practices and hacks. And then Dana is going to introduce you, hopefully time permitting, to a couple of our other favorite platforms. But as always, before we get started, we want to know who is with us today. So we're going to launch a poll where we're going to ask you to tell us your year in school. And then we'll also have a follow-up question about your major. So go ahead and fill that in for us. I'm very curious if it's going to follow kind of our demographics from the last couple of days. Yeah, so as usual, we're seeing grad students coming out to represent. A nice mix of all the other years. Welcome to our incoming first year students. We haven't started here yet, but we wanted to make sure you could know that you could come today and join us. We really appreciate seeing you here. All right, so yeah, we have a few more third years and fourth years. We've been seeing that. Wonderful, everyone. Thank you so much. Again, we really appreciate folks from every single year coming out, as well as our grad students continuing to represent. All right, let's learn a bit more about what your degree is and whether it's your major or what you're studying in your master's or potentially PhD program. All right, a few BMEs, couple CS, Mac Aero Systems, computer engineering, electrical. So kind of like yesterday, a little bit of almost everything.
Heather, I also realized we may have other students from other schools, which they're more than welcome to be here.
That's very true. Yeah. So if your major is not represented and you come from another school, whether that's comm school, education, arts and sciences, let us know that in the chat. That's a great point, Francis. I really appreciate that. All right. So a little bit of a mix of everything. And again, I love that because your job search timelines might look a little bit different from one another. When you might want to start networking and what purpose that you might want to use networking for. Like that's going to vary based on your own unique interest in the typical hiring timeline. So thank you so much for letting us know where you're coming from today. I'm Heather Palmer. You've heard me a little bit in the background this week. I'm a career advisor here in the engineering school, getting ready to start my 11th year, which is just crazy to me. Before that, I was with the Central Career Center that serves all students on grounds for 4 years. And then a little bit before that, I was actually a UVA student myself. So I'm a UVA alumna, and I'm also a first gen grad. So for me, being a first generation student meant that I was the first in my family, not only to obtain a 4-year degree from a university, but I was also the first in my family to have the opportunity to go to college. So that's part of my identity as well. And I love working with all students, but especially my fellow first generation students. So what we're going to start with today is highlighting how you can use LinkedIn for networking. So even if you're not going to a networking night, one of our many career fairs this semester, or an info session, there are lots of ways to connect with employers, alumni, friends, and even people that you haven't even met yet on LinkedIn. And sometimes people feel like that's still a little awkward. They don't know where to get started. So again, my whole aim today is to make this a little less daunting and as well to share a couple of hacks. So even if you don't have a LinkedIn account, I would say take some notes today. And I would say maybe spend maybe an hour or so implementing some of these tips and tricks later on tonight, or definitely by Sunday. I would say make that kind of a goal. If you don't have time today, by this Sunday, find some time in your schedule to try some of these things out. All right, we're going to start with the LinkedIn profile. Before you reach out to anyone on LinkedIn, especially those that you don't know, you want to make sure that you have a fairly complete and robust profile, because that actually increases the likelihood that someone that does not know you will actually respond to either a connection request or a message that you send them. And so I want to highlight 3 elements of your profile that if you don't have, I want you to have by Sunday. And if you do have, I just want you to go back and revisit these 3 elements of your profile by Sunday to make sure they're, as strong as possible. So we're going to start with this top section, the photo, what we call the headline, this little tagline right underneath the name. And we're also going to look at, and that's number one. Number two, we're going to look at the experiences on your resume. And then number three, we'll be looking at the summary. But I wanted to start with what to use as your photo. I actually get that question a lot. I highly recommend that it is a color photo with you from about maybe the chest or shoulders and up. So almost like someone is extending their hand to shake your hand, and they're really just focused on your face and maybe again, like your shoulders or your chest and up. Use whatever a natural smile is for you. So that could be an open, mouth smile like Chloe has, or, if a more soft smile with your mouth closed is natural to you, again, that works. Chloe is wearing, a blazer here and a top, and she's by the columns at the rotunda. So feel free to find some brick or some columns or some green background and just to use your phone, right? Our cameras in our phone are plenty now. We don't have to have a professional photo shoot. I also wanted to highlight the profile photo of my friend Hanbin. Again, he just has a solid color background here. And he's wearing a button-up shirt and a tie, but no blazer. And that's a little more appropriate for him. He's a software developer, an engineer. And so he's maybe gonna not have that blazer on in his photo. Again, really cropped in, right? Shoulders and up for Hanbin. Now, Jessica has a slightly different profile photo. She is actually working at Amazon. She's a program manager now, overseeing multiple building sites for Amazon and all of the logistics that go on within that. Her first job after graduation at Amazon was actually working in one facility, managing all of the logistics. And so here we see that she's wearing her vest. We see the facility behind her. And so she wanted to kind of brand herself at work and show herself in action. So if you believe that would be appropriate based on your interest and background, feel free to have a photo like Jessica. And then finally, I wanted to highlight Alex. He was a BME grad from UVA, and he worked a lot with students in the engineering school who had entrepreneurial interest and maybe were interested in working with startups. And he's been now at Darden. Alex has done a lot of teaching and presenting. So I actually like that he's taken advantage of this cover photo, again, to show a photo of him in action. Sometimes I've seen this cover photo be used with students with an action photo of them in the lab, or someone was interested in aviation, so they actually had themselves beside a plane. So think about, what would you want to have as your profile photo, and what is a way to engage visitors to your profile by having a cover photo that somehow represents your industry, you in action, or one of your interests, okay? And as I'm going along, of course, feel free to take yourself off of mute and ask a question, but you can also pop questions in the chat, and Dana and Francis will be sure to let me know about those. All right, so that was the photo. The next thing I want to highlight is, again, what we call the headline, and that is that about 160 or 180 characters or so of like a tagline that you get underneath your photo. These are very, very important, because when employers, recruiters, or even just people search on LinkedIn by a keyword, what it's usually going to gravitate towards in the search results is what is listed in this headline. Now, LinkedIn defaults to whatever your current job is, or whatever the last opportunity is that you put into LinkedIn. So for me, it would just default to assistant director at the University of Virginia. What does that even mean? Like, it doesn't tell them what I do. And actually, most people that I see on LinkedIn let it default to their current title, and that doesn't really give a lot of information. So I recommend always going back to that headline and curating it with keywords that match your industry of interest, your field of interest, maybe your major, and maybe highlighting a couple of skills. So Anna, who was at UVA, says, empowering organizations to take transformative climate action. And then she lists a couple of her certifications, which I really like. She uses those vertical lines that a lot of us use now instead of commas just to help visually separate the different keywords and the different elements that she has to share. I've worked with a student who was Mechie and he had a variety of interests. So he started with, and what most of you might want to do is mechanical engineering student at UVA, vertical line. He started with additive manufacturing as an interest. So he had additive manufacturing, robotics as an interest. So he had robotics. And then eventually climate issues and sustainability became interesting to him. And so he had that as his third keyword. And that just helps someone A, find you, but B, if you've applied to an opportunity and you're getting ready for an interview, if the employer or the interviewer comes to your profile, they're going to very quickly get an idea of who you are through that headline, instead of it just defaulting to student at the University of Virginia. So take some time to update that. And again, if you need some help figuring out what would I even say, put a couple of your interests into the general search in LinkedIn, and it will show you what other professionals or students that have similar interests to you, it's going to show you what they listed as their headline. I highly recommend that if you need some help creating a more robust headline, that you just do some searches and benchmark with some other people. So that's one idea. Instead of using the vertical lines, Alex came in here. Again, he mentioned he's a PhD candidate trained in chemical engineering and material science with 8 years of R&D experience. So he also tells you a little bit about his history and how much experience he has to back up his professional knowledge and skills. So again, feel free, especially for those of you that are grad students that may have worked in between undergrad and grad school. Again, feel free to use some of your background if you're not transitioning fields at all. And again, you can see these profile photos are still really close and cropped in. So that's what I wanted to share about this top information, your photo, as well as the headline. Those cannot be, I cannot underscore enough like how important those actually are. Now, next in the profile, I wanted to highlight how important it is to really flesh out your experience section. So Caitlin, who I met actually at a presentation for LinkedIn a couple of years ago, has done a phenomenal job of this. We also see she's done a great job with her headline. I'm going to scroll down though to this experience section. And I highly recommend that all of you start, if you've not already, by taking the different sections of your resume, the different experiences that are on your resume, and simply just copying and pasting those into the different experience sections that LinkedIn gives you. If you want to put everything in this one experience section, great, but you can actually add a project section. You can add a coursework section. So feel free, just like on your resume, how you might have different sections, like Dana talked about yesterday. Feel free to use the unique blocks and the unique sections that LinkedIn will give you. What I especially love that Caitlin has done that not that many people do is that whenever you add an experience on LinkedIn, you see that she has these additional supportive files. When you are adding a new experience in, you can link to a website. So maybe you have a portfolio, maybe you have a GitHub where it's tied to that project from the classroom that you had. Maybe you gave a presentation that was recorded in some way, shape, or form. Maybe UVA in UVA Today, or maybe one of the engineering school departments wrote up an article about some research or a club that you're in and what you did. If there is a place online that you think showcases your involvement in that project or that organization or that internship, if there is a deliverable that you created that you are able to share publicly, please link it on there. Your LinkedIn profile then almost becomes like a portfolio for you. And not only can the employer see what you're telling them in the bullet points, but they can see how that was presented, recognized, awarded, and they can get more details on how you present, but also on your work itself. That's not something that a lot of people have done. So again, I highly recommend asking yourself, do I have any type of documentation, video, audio that I can use to really supplement what I've listed here? Perfect. So that was an experience section I wanted to highlight. And finally, I mentioned the third thing on your profile that I wanted to show you was the summary. It's also called the about section now. And I would say up until the last year or two, not that many people used it, whether they were students or like me, a working professional. most people just put that off until later. And I actually recommend for students, get your photo and headline taken care of, add your experience on, and worry about this about section as the last thing. But if you don't have one now, or if you need to revisit it, I highly recommend it. What you share here might be similar to what you would share in a cover letter. It might be similar to what you will share in your elevator pitch or the tell me about yourself question during an interview. And again, we have a wonderful employer on Friday during Career Week that will be sharing how do you craft your elevator pitch? How do you, in a brief amount of space like we see here, how do you tell an employer who you're about? What I really love that Alex did here is that he talks about his interest and background, both in data science and mechanical engineering. And then he kind of says, as a mechanical engineer, here's my background. And as a data scientist, here's some things that I've done. And like, here's how they blend together. It is just so short and sweet and to the point, but also really powerful. And so I love how he's shown this. And as you read it, I hope what you're also seeing is that I feel like this is conversational in nature. It's not overly formal language. It's not stuffy. I can see him, I can see speaking to him in person, or him being on an airplane and the person next to him wants to know what he does. And just saying like, oh, I'm a data scientist, a mechanical engineer, and I'm also a triathlete. You know, I'm really passionate about mobility and sustainability. Like I could see him saying this out loud. And so that's kind of the tone that you want to try to aim for. So I wanted to show you Alex's. I also wanted to show you Jean's. I had the pleasure of getting to know her when she was a student here as well. And she had an interest not only in computer science, but in STEM education and how to make STEM education and coding more accessible to more people. And so she's doing a lot of wonderful research in that right now. But I love, again, how she shares here how like 3 different interests of mine combine to lead me to where I am right now. And so we've talked about this week how you're not just probably one-dimensional with one interest. You probably have several interests that have either already intersected or you're trying to find out how can they intersect? How can you merge those interests together? And I think this about section is the perfect way to tell your story of here's a couple of different things that I'm interested in. Here's how I've already brought them together. Here's how I'm looking to bring them together. And again, here's some skill sets or accomplishments I've had from that. Here's what a former supervisor has really appreciated about my work. Here's a deliverable from that. And if you're still in the exploratory stage, awesome. You know, just share with people, I'm interested in the intersection of A, B, and C. And maybe sharing, you had a class in A, which piqued the interest. Then you had an employer tech talk that really introduced you to interest B, and you're now exploring the intersection of those. So again, I hope these 2 examples show you how real life students and alums have had that about section. So before I go on to the next part, I just want to pause and see if anyone has any questions. And again, feel free to take yourself off of mute. All right, we'll continue on. So once you have your profile, I've had a lot of students say, Heather, I have a profile, but I haven't really used LinkedIn after that. Like, I know I should be reaching out to people, but it's intimidating, or I've reached out and I haven't heard from people. What do I do next? So we will talk about how to reach out to people. But first, I want to show you, once you have your profile, what is something that you can start doing yourself to be more active on LinkedIn and to create a brand for yourself and to start.
Hi, Heather, I actually have a question. So how would you tailor, or specifically tailor on your About Me section, that you're bilingual as a skill? And if you could give me some insights on that.
Yeah, so just like highlighting that you are bilingual, is that the question?
Yes.
Yeah, so 2 different ways I would say, especially if you're hoping to use those 2, your bilingual skills for a future employer or a project. Some people in their About section will have their 1 or 2 conversational paragraphs, and then they'll have a skills line, almost like that skills section that Dana showed us yesterday on the resume. They'll have a skills section where they'll list a technical set of skills, but also things like project management, bilingual in and listing the languages. That could be one way. If you're hoping that your readers are also going to be bilingual, you could potentially also share your about section in one language and then have it again in the second language, just so both readers can see that. And your readers can also see you're not just saying you're bilingual, you actually have the skill set. So that could be another way to approach it.
Do you think it's a skill worth mentioning?
Yeah, I absolutely do. Whether you're going to be using it every day in your job, who knows if there might be a customer or client where those skill sets could come into play. And even if it's not being used on a daily basis, I think employers can really appreciate that as well. Maybe being bilingual, and maybe you're someone that's more culturally aware of different cultures and how they interact. You're more aware of nuances potentially in language and how those can impact communications. So even if it's not used on a daily basis, there are still things that employers can make assumptions potentially about you. And you can also share what's in it for you that I am bilingual, whether you're using those skill sets on a daily basis or not. Does that help?
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Feel free to chat with me offline, more one-on-one too. Great question. Yeah, if there's more profile questions, drop them in the chat. We can definitely talk about those or take yourself off of mute. But yeah, once they have your profile, I want to show you two of my colleagues in something that they do so well. And I'll admit something that I don't do very well. And that is to post on LinkedIn from time to time, and maybe with at least a weekly frequency. If you're someone that's wanting to establish yourself as someone that has some knowledge within your major or field of interest, as someone that has professional skills. So Reggie is one of my colleagues who works specifically with the students in the School of Data Science. And whenever there is an employer coming, whenever he travels and meets new firms that are hiring candidates, whenever he goes to a conference, Reggie is sure to post about what he's learned and taken away. He is sure to highlight other people and reshare their stories. And so in doing that, Reggie is branding himself as like a specialist within the field of data science, also as someone that likes to build community and connect people with one another. And so imagine Reggie's different followers. They see these reminders all of the time of what he cares about, what he's learning. And so if they ever wanted someone's tips and advice, or if they ever wanted to loop someone in, I don't want to lose Reggie from UVA, but if someone ever said, hey, Reggie, we're hiring, we know some awesome things about you because we see your post, Reggie is creating opportunities for conversations and connections by posting about himself and posting about the things that he's learning. Because he posts somewhat frequently, he usually gets really good engagement from other people, comments, likes, and so on. And so I would say if you're engaged in a research project, if you are on the solar car team or engineers going global, if you're working on a personal project, look at maybe the month ahead and see, are there opportunities for me to highlight a student organization I'm a part of, a conference I'm going to, an event that I'm going to, things that I'm learning in the classroom? How can I maybe post once a week because I want to establish myself, again, as someone knowledgeable in my area, someone that's interested in my career interest, and maybe over time as a thought leader as well. So that's Reggie. I just wanted to back that up by coming back to our friend and alum, Alex Zaretta. He's really great at doing the same things because again, he likes to work closely with startups and helping them succeed. And he's done that very well for years. He's always going to post about entrepreneurship and new startups. Again, he gets really lovely engagement as well. And so if people are ever thinking of who can I connect someone to, who can I ask a question of, Alex is not going to be far from the top of your mind because he constantly shares this content that is related to his interests, and it helps people remember him and think of him. So if you need some help in figuring out how that might look for you, again, we'd be happy to help you. But I really want to make it an aim myself to share more frequent content, again, even just maybe once a week, so people know what I'm up to, and I can give shout outs to students who share their stories publicly with us on our blog. I can share a wonderful presentation that Dana or Francis did and connect people to my colleagues. All right, so that is one way that you can start having a presence for yourself outside of your profile. The final section that I want us to turn to is, okay, well, now how do I meet other people? How do I find people that might be interested in speaking with me, that I would be interested in speaking with? And how can I do that, Heather, in a more natural way? So one of these, again, maybe lower key, lower risk ways to do that is to actually just search for a company that you're interested in LinkedIn. So for those BMEs that are on the call, and potentially maybe for a couple of the MECs, if you have a biotech interest, I brought up Boston Scientific. I often talk with BMEs about Boston Scientific, and you can do a variety of things on their company page. If you have not, I highly recommend that you pull up employers that you're even remotely interested in and follow them. For one thing, you will have content that comes on their company page, even including jobs, pushed to your LinkedIn feed. But I've also had a couple of students and alums tell me, Heather, when I followed a company, I actually was reached out to at one point about a job, because when they had jobs available, they actually made sure that the people that were following them heard about it. They actually filtered through their followers and found me as a student, and they had a student internship opportunity. And so I got to hear about it maybe earlier than I would have otherwise. So I highly recommend doing that. In addition, with the employees, you can see if you have any connections working there. I know one of our new graduates from this past May now has a job at Boston Scientific. And so this is a really easy way to see, are there any alumni working here? And if not, when you go to this overall employees section, you'll be able to do some filtering and see if you can find folks that have a job title that sounds like the one that you would be interested in. Did they intern for the organization? These people are really likely to want to pay it forward and help someone else explore what it means to work at Boston Scientific, explore what it looks to have a medical device design job and be working on that type of team. And so this is, again, a wonderful way to start reaching out with people and get to know them. Plus, on the side here, it shows other pages. And so you're going to be able to learn about, well, what are some other companies? What are some other organizations that I might be interested in? If I'm interested in Boston Scientific, I'm probably interested in Medtronic, Abbott, Stryker, and so on. So if you're also just starting to get to know your fields of interest, you're going to learn a whole lot by doing this, and you'll be able to interact with these people as well. One of my favorite ways to actually find people that you're interested in is to do a search for hashtag. And anyone that has included that hashtag on their post, you'll find them. So again, just like I know some of our students are really interested in 3D printing and additive manufacturing and so forth, I did a search this morning and yesterday to check out additive manufacturing. And what I love is that not only will you find companies that you've probably never heard of that are related to your interest, because maybe they're not household names, maybe they will be a household name. Well, maybe that's a new company that you want to follow. And if you follow them, again, you might hear great things about them. You might be able to even comment and start liking their post. And when I've seen students and alumni, again, follow a company, engage with their post and comment, sometimes someone has reached out. Hey, Heather, I saw that you commented on our page. Are you looking for an internship this summer? Our company is going to have an internship program with a deadline of fill in the blank. I've heard these stories. So make sure you do that kind of outreach as well. And then if you scroll down, oh, look, we see that there are individuals that have posted with the hashtag. It's not just companies. And so if you're looking into additive manufacturing, and this is a material scientist and a project manager, well, maybe if I comment on their profile and engage a couple times, maybe this is someone that will actually become a first degree connection over time. Maybe it's someone that I can reach out to because after a few posts, I've learned about them, and maybe I'll reach out and ask for their tips and advice on breaking into the field. So don't just search for companies, search for hashtags as well and keywords, and see how you can find people that are like-minded that you might want to connect with. And finally, and I'm sure a lot of people have been interested, I want to show you a little bit more about how to connect with alumni, as well as a hack that LinkedIn will never tell you. And whenever I show this hack to people for the first time, they say, Heather, I've never heard about this before. I've never seen it. I'm going to be using this all the time. So I hope it's really helpful to you too. Probably the easiest way to find alumni on LinkedIn is to just do a search for University of Virginia at the top and choose their company page or our school page. And when you scroll down, you're going to see in the menu options that you can look for and search through the alumni that are on LinkedIn. And what's amazing is that we have over 160,000 UVA alums that have a LinkedIn profile. Alumni are usually really happy to hear from you all, as long as you're asking for tips and advice and not saying, hey, Heather, I see you're at Boston Scientific. I'd love to have an internship there. Will you pass my resume around? You can't ask for that, but you could ask for, hey, Heather, I'm a third-year BME who's become really interested in medical device design, and I've currently been exploring it on my own by doing X, Y, and Z. I see that you're currently working at Boston Scientific, and I would love to hear more about your career exploration journey and how you broke into the field. That is something that you could say. So when you get to this alumni search tool, you could overall say, hey, I want to search for people that work at Capital One because I know it's one of UVA's largest employers. Or if you hit this next button that's really easy to overlook, you can also say, I am early in my career exploration, or I'm just really curious, where do computer science students go? Where do mechanical engineering students go? Let's put in aerospace, why not? Now they're not going to list aerospace the way that we do at UVA, so feel free to go through all of those different filters to do that. But when I've done that, it's going to say, great, of the aerospace folks that have a LinkedIn profile, some are at UVA, some are at Boeing, Northrop Grumman, and so on. And let's just say you're like, well, I really want to hone in on our alumni that are working at Boeing. Once you've had all these filters, you can go down and see who those folks are. If you weren't ready to engage with them, you could click on any one of their profiles and take a look at their job history. Are they working at Boeing now? Awesome. Where did they work before Boeing? Where did they intern as an undergrad, if not Boeing? This might give you a list of some places that you might want to look for an internship or a job or a next step. But you also know that you'll be able to reach out to them for tips and advice. So what I would do, I would not hit the connect button from this search. What that will do is it will send Drew a connection request right away from you without any background. I would actually open up Drew's profile in a separate tab. And it's going to load here in a second, I'm sure. And you can hit the connect button if you like from the profile. And instead of sending the connection request straight away, always select add a note. And this is where you will have 300 characters to briefly introduce yourself. Hi, Drew. I'm a second-year aerospace student at the University of Virginia, or I'm a master's aerospace student at UVA with an interest in X, Y, and Z. I currently see that you're a flight systems engineer at Boeing. And as I'm exploring what career paths I might want to go into, I would love to hear from you about how you came to find this job, what your career path has been like, and what your job is like on a day-to-day basis. Thanks so much. Looking forward to hearing from you. Keeping the note fairly short. Now you can do that, but not everyone checks their connection request very frequently. Not everyone gets to take a look at those notes that you add on. So while this is a totally valid way to reach out to alums, I like a slightly different approach. So I'm going to click out of Drew's profile. Let's pretend that in this search that I had just done, I had wanted to look at master's students or master's grads from systems, or I was curious to look at grad students who are now in data science from the engineering school. So let's just say in this search, I had found Ryan. Ryan is also someone that I know. And again, we could hit the connection button if we don't know him and add a note. And I know Ryan personally really values people adding notes. But what you can also do, and this is the hack, if you scroll down to the very bottom, and I apologize for the scrolling, in someone's profile, you will see a box called interest. Okay, I'm going to click see all. If the person that you're interested in has followed any companies, or if they have joined a group on LinkedIn, we will be able to see that. So as we're looking, we see, oh, well, we didn't go to Clemson, so that doesn't make sense to join. Oh, but wait, Ryan has joined the UVA alumni students, faculty, and staff group, and students are welcome to join. Ryan is also a member of the UVA Engineering Alumni and Friends group, which you all also would be welcome to join. I'm going to ask you to take a look at the group that you either already have in common or that you could have in common. So we'll wait for this UVA alumni page to come up. Okay. Now, if you haven't joined this group yet, do that today. Like, definitely do that today, as long as you at least have a profile. It doesn't have to be filled out all the way, but I would have a picture and the fact that you're a UVA student on there. The downside to these groups is that you can't search for people by keywords, but you can search for them by name. So I am going to take a look at all of the people in this group. And I know that Ryan is a member of this group. So I'm going to search for Ryan. Again, I've already decided that I'm interested in his profile after doing filtering on that alumni tool and after taking a look at his profile. Even without sending him a first degree connection request, you can send Ryan a message that's longer than the add a note from the connection request. You can send him a message completely for free. You do not have to be connected and you do not need a premium account. What LinkedIn doesn't tell us is that as long as we're in the same group as someone else, we can send any of them a message for free. And instead of that connection request notification that will go up here to my network, instead it will go here to messaging. And I don't know about you all, but I'm actually more likely to check my messages on LinkedIn than I am the my network and connection requests, because I also get connection requests from people that are not in higher ed, they aren't UVA grads. We don't have any type of connection and they don't tell me why they're interested in connecting with me. So let me just take Ryan's name away and I want to show you, here are people that are not first degree connections with me. They are second or even third. But if they are in this group with me, I can message any of them for free. I know Angel's here today, so thank you for letting me use you as an example. And I can send a message. I could also add a file if I wanted. And again, this message can be longer than those 300 characters of add a note. So this is my preferred way to reach out to alumni, is to do some filtering on this alumni tool, check out their profile, and then scroll down to the bottom to see, are they in the UVA alumni groups? If not, is there a group like data mining, stats, big data, and so on? This is just for folks that are interested in data science, same as this one. That could be another group you could join if you were interested in data science. Is this person in a group that I can join for free, find them, and then send a message? So I hope that hack was helpful. Again, it's almost always new to every single person that I meet. Now I've shared that you can reach out to people, but if you're like, yes, Heather, but what do I say? You've rattled off a couple of scripts today, but what do I say? In a follow-up email from today, what I will do for everyone here, and then if you're watching this later, just let us know on the replay, email us and we'd be happy to help you out. On our website, we actually have a networking page that has outreach templates and samples, and they are designed for this very type of activity, for reaching out to an alum or a non-alum on LinkedIn and asking them if you can maybe schedule a time on Zoom to chat with them, because you would just love to hear their tips and advice about career paths within your discipline, what it's like specifically to work within their industry or to work at the company that they currently work at. And we have all different types of samples here that vary based on where you might be and your own major exploration and career exploration yourself. So we've already done this great work of creating these templates for you. And again, they're available on our website. I'm guessing that maybe Dana or Francis has popped those into the chat. So that is everything that I wanted to share with you today about LinkedIn, setting up your profile, creating more of your own presence, starting to follow companies and folks that you might be interested in, and then actually finding people to reach out to, whether it's very directly or through a group, as well as these templates. I want to make sure that Dana has time to talk about a couple of other platforms, but before we do that, does anyone have any questions about anything that we shared from LinkedIn today? Quiet group today, quiet group. Hopefully that means there's no questions, that everything was covered and you've taken so many notes.
Heather, I'll just add,
Yes.
One thing that comes up sometimes when I'm talking with students about LinkedIn is that they feel uncomfortable and nervous about reaching out to someone that they don't really know that well. And I like to remind them that
Yes.
that's what LinkedIn is for.
Yes.
That's why the platform was built, was for people, professionals and people trying to change careers or find new career opportunities to reach out and connect with each other. So it's not weird to reach out to someone on LinkedIn because that's what the platform is all about.
Exactly. Yeah, that's why it's there. That's what it's meant for. So that's wonderful. Dana, I'll hand it over to you. And just so everyone knows, I will have to take off at 12:50 because I'm leading a presentation at 1 o'clock. So I'll hang out here for a few more minutes if you want to pop any questions in the chat. But otherwise, Dana, I'm going to hand it over to you to talk about the Virginia Alumni Mentoring Program.
Great. Thanks, Heather. Okay, so if even after Heather's wonderful presentation, you're still a little nervous about getting started with making connections and talking with alums about your career interests, there's a platform that the university hosts for students and alums that's called the Virginia Alumni Mentoring Program. And I'm going to put a link in the chat for that you can take a look at while we're talking. It's a platform that was designed to be a place where students and alums can connect with each other. And it was really the thought process was around allowing students to initiate the conversation with alums. So you can think of it a little bit as I like to call it a mini LinkedIn. It has a lot of the same functionality and a lot of the same goals as LinkedIn, but it is only for UVA students and for UVA alums. So UVA alums self-select to participate in the program. So they log on, create an account where they can select from a number of different topic areas that they're interested in helping students with. So the reassurance from the student's perspective is that they know any alum that's in that system is there because they want to be and they want to help students. So I'm going to share my screen really quickly and just talk through a little bit more of the functionality there. So the alumni mentoring program is, even though it has mentoring in the title, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're setting up a long-term, involved mentoring relationship. Although that is an option if you're interested in finding a mentor, someone that you can talk with on a regular basis about your career goals, it is set up to do that, but it also has the ability to allow students just to ask questions on a one-off basis. So if you just have a quick question about what it's like, you want to talk with someone who's working in a particular industry, want to know what their perspective is on what they've enjoyed about working there, you can ask just a quick question as well. And just like those templates that that Heather was showing you, that will help you kind of figure out what you want to say when you're reaching out to someone. The VAM program has similar templates built into the system. So when you find an alum that you're interested in talking with, you can click the button that lets you connect, and it will pre-populate the email for you with wording that is most likely is appropriate. You might want to tweak it to make it sound more like you. But we'll look at a we'll look at how it works really quickly. Once you log on, and it does require a little bit of time to get set up. So maybe plan for 5 or 10 minutes to sit down, and it's a profile that you'll fill out. It'll go through some questions about what your interests are that help the other students in the program, in the system, and the alums know a little bit about what you're interested in. But I'm going to pull up a particular student. So let's see, can do that quickly. I need to change my settings to view it as a student, as you would review it. You have, as a student, a network tab at the top that allows you to see all of the alums in the system, and you can filter by a number of different filters: location, major, the type of experience that they have, and then it lets you, very similar to LinkedIn, see their profiles there. So if you click Let's Connect, that will let me do that.
Dana, quickly, while you're doing that,
Yeah.
Mrs. Francis, I did just put in that link that you created, the blog post that Aparna had created for creating
using them.
It's in the
great.
chat.
Fabulous. So that goes, one of our students put together kind of a overview of how to use VAM to get connected. And they're always adding new functionality. Like I see some new options for ways to connect and chat, taking a quiz to find someone that may be a good option for you to talk with. But if you click Let's Connect, it shows you the different ways that you can reach out to someone. Again, like I mentioned, if you want a long-term mentorship opportunity versus just writing to request a quick one-time conversation, or you just have a quick question that you want to ask, you can send a message, and it gives you templates that you can use based on what you're asking. So just a little reassurance that you're phrasing things the right way, and that you're going to, that your message is going to be well received. So just little things that they've done in this program that make it easy for students to get started, knowing that making that initial connection sometimes is the hardest part. So I encourage you to take a look at VAM, explore the alum that are in there, and explore some of the other functionality that VAM offers as well. There are groups that you can join based on interest areas. There's a discussion board where you can post questions to the group, to the platform as a whole. We see students ask about questions around choosing a major often, or about working in particular industries, or about the interview process for a particular company. And then there are also projects that alumni share that can be short-term work experiences that you might be interested in looking through as well. So that whole VAM program has a lot of different options and ways to connect with alums. And again, the really nice thing about it is that you know that the alums that are in the system are there by choice, and that they've specifically completed a profile because they want to help UVA students with these types of questions. The other type of connection that I wanted to talk about a little bit was through Handshake. So everyone is familiar with Handshake and how we use that system as a way to post jobs and internships. We use it at UVA, but also hundreds of schools across the country use it as well. And Handshake has some functionality that allows students to connect with other students that are that are also at schools that are using Handshake. So it can be a way to kind of network, but maybe with fellow students that might feel, again, a little safer and a little bit of a less intimidating way to kind of start reaching out to people and asking questions. So if you, we'll start from the main Handshake login page. You go to your profile, your little circle with your initials in the top right, and click My Profile. We hope most of you have a nicely completed profile. This is my student profile that I use to navigate Handshake as a student. But if you scroll all the way to the bottom, there's a left-hand box that says Discover More Students. And this is where you can find information about students that are on Handshake that have made their profiles public and available. You can sort them by the year they are in school. You can look at just UVA students if you want to. You can look at them by major. You can look at where they've worked previously. So if you have say you have a interview coming up with a particular company and you want to find maybe other students who have worked at that company already to ask questions about their experience, you can look for them here and you can send them a message. So this is just a feature of Handshake that a lot of students probably don't realize is there, that I think can be very valuable and a great kind of first steps in getting comfortable with reaching out to folks and helping and getting help for those kinds of questions that you might have as you're exploring careers, as you're looking at companies, preparing for interviews. And hopefully it's a way that you can broaden the ideas or the number of companies and the ideas you have about where you want to look for internships and full-time jobs. Anyone have, I know I went through both of those fairly quickly, but if anyone has questions about either of those ways to kind of expand your networking, I'm happy to answer questions.
Dana, one thing I was going to say that might be neat to point out is the groups in VAM.
Yeah, we can look at groups. Let me see.
Or you maybe just mention it because there's so many cool groups there.
Let me share that real quick. Yeah, so there are groups in VAM. I think I had mentioned it just briefly, but it's just a way for students that share a particular interest to have a place where the students and alumni can trade messages or post questions to a discussion board that are about a particular area of interest. So you can see the range here from, if you have a business interest or actually the chemical engineering department here has a very active group on VAM.
Dana, also so sorry, but it's not showing up on the page. It's showing your Zoom page.
Oh, let's see. Thanks, Francis.
Sure. That's showing Tableau.
Hang on.
I just try to like reshare.
Yeah. Let's try that.
There.
How's that? Okay. Sorry about that. So this just lists some of the groups that are on VAM, that are in VAM, and you can see kind of the range of areas that they cover. It will, some of them are specific and you have to be like for the ECHLS program, you have to be part of the ECHLS program for that, but many of them are just related to particular interests that you have, and a nice way to talk with and share experiences with or ask questions with students and alums that share a particular interest.
Yeah, and you can see like where the engineering, science, technology, there's close to 900 members. And the business community also.
Yep, there are a number of the groups that have a really large numbers of students and alums that are participating. So something to explore and check out when you have time. Anything else? Any questions? All right, well, I'm going to assume that means no questions, but hopefully this gave you lots of ideas for ways that you can get started networking, that you can optimize your LinkedIn, that you can get comfortable with and work the networking piece into your job search. I do think that anytime you can add that personal connection to a position that you've applied to, so anytime you can make yourself, you're more than just a resume that you've submitted online, you have a personal connection with someone at the company, I think it increases your odds of hearing back from the company, of getting to the next step in the process, and can be a great way just to make your job search more efficient. So you have to apply to fewer positions, and that you're getting better results from those positions when you do apply. Anything you want to add, Frances?
I just echo what you're saying, and we do find that networking, a lot of times we'll hear from students that and alumni, it's the #1 way of finding opportunities. So we do encourage you to connect with employers and alums using the different platforms that we talked about today, for sure.
All right, thanks everybody.
Thanks
for coming
everybody
today.
Don't hesitate to reach
hopefully-
out to us directly if you need anything or any assistance. Hopefully we'll see you tomorrow. Accenture will be talking about behavioral interviewing, and we'll go through a mock interview.